Hi friends, welcome to Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I'm Jenny and we live and garden here in Baltimore, Maryland, Zone 7. Today I thought I would share with you some things you can be doing in your winter garden right now as you sit in your chair and you plan for what you want to put out in the garden. There are some things you can be doing, so let's talk about those. Today is January 4th and it is a balmy 61 degrees out here in the backyard. The only reason I'm wearing this hat is because I have really bad bedhead right now and I didn't really want to have that on the video. Now, one of the first things you can do, of course, is look back at the photos or videos that you made of your garden last season. What did you like? What do you want to change? What worked really well? What needs some improvement? And what are you never going to do again? These are the kinds of things you can be doing sitting in your chair in the warm, cozy house while it may be cold outside where you are. I have, of course, a bajillion videos of my garden last year. What I need to do better job this year is taking actual still photos of my garden. Since I started the YouTube channel, I've really been focusing mostly on videos and I haven't taken as many stills as I want. The reason I want stills is because I like to put together Pinterest boards of how the garden is looking in a specific garden bed in a specific month. And then I have them organized, a board for a bed, and then I can gaze back and look at the progress of that bed over the seasons. And I haven't been able to do that these last couple of years because I've not really taken very many still photos. So that's a goal for me, more still photos of the garden. If the weather allows where you live, you could get out in your yard and do some yard cleanup. I know that here at our house, we worked on the backyard a couple of days ago. I think it was January 1st or maybe 2nd. I don't know. We had some unseasonably mild weather these first few days of January here. So my husband and I got out with the leaf blower, the leaf vacuum, the leaf rake, and we took care of the leaves that were on the lawn and some of the leaves that were in the flower beds themselves. We chopped them up into smaller pieces and we laid them out onto the flower beds. So every single flower bed in our entire property, is that true? Might not quite be true. Almost every single flower bed on our entire property has a beautiful layer of shredded leaves as mulch. Now, in some places, these are already starting to break down. I can tell because if you pull it back, it's a little bit wet and darker black color, and you can see that it's starting to turn into leaf mold, which is exactly what we want. So you could be doing cleanup. You could be cutting back your perennials that are looking worse for wear. You could be raking up things. I don't recommend that you do much pruning right now because maybe you want to wait until later winter and earlier spring time frame. For us, that's in March, but wherever you live, it'll be a different time. Down here on the third of my terrace gardens, I just spent a lot of time the other day cutting back everything. This is my bronze fennel. I have some, is that phlox maybe? Over here, I had some serendipity allium. I had some denim and lace Russian sage, is that what it is? Perovskia. Over here I had some dahlias still, and then over here I had dahlias and some hostas and things like that. So I got them all cleaned up and I put nice fresh layer of shredded leaf mulch on everything. And so now I'm, kind of just waiting for spring to come. Now I do want to call your attention to this area. You can see here, I did cover up these allium flower clumps right here. 1, 2, 3 clumps of allium. I put nice leaves on them, but I uncovered my irises. They had received a nice strong layer of leaves like that, and I had to pull them back because iris clumps really need sun in order to perform. So I'm leaving those uncovered just like that. So cleaning up the garden, that's another thing you can be doing right now. And let's say now your garden is all shipshape clean. You're just waiting for spring to come so that you can start planting and growing things again. Well, what else can you be doing in your garden? Well, you could certainly be taking photos of all of your garden spaces. You can evaluate them for one, is this the flower bed shape I still want? Are these the plants I still want? How does it look in the winter? Is there enough structure in the garden in the wintertime? Does it look pleasing? Do I need to rearrange something? Is that tree gonna die? Maybe that tree's gonna live. I don't know. Let's see, what else? You could be looking at what is still evergreen in your garden, and maybe you want to be putting more of those in other areas of your garden. Taking pictures of, or videos I suppose, of your current garden in the winter is a really great idea, because you can sit inside in the warmth again, and just like you were reviewing your photos from last year, you could be looking at these wintertime photos of your garden and figuring out what you want to add, subtract, change in the garden. Now there's one plant in my garden that last year I said the same thing that I'm getting ready to say about this plant this year. I don't know why I didn't act on it last year, but anyway, here is a plant I love and need more of in my life. This is Firepower Nandina. It's a dwarf Nandina. It's evergreen. It's hardy. I forget how hardy it is. I'm sorry, folks. If you live in the north, it may not work for you, but it's certainly doing fine in my Zone 7 garden. Look at all that lush growth in there. Look at this fire engine red color. It is so gorgeous. I have 3 of them here, and oh my gosh, the red on this one is even better. Ugh, it doesn't die. It's so gorgeous. Look at that color. And there's a 3rd one down there. I definitely want to get more of these, and I want to use them in a pretty obvious way in the garden as a really impactful plant. They have 4-season gorgeous interest, and so I want to take advantage of that and make my yard all the better for using a plant like this to its best advantage somewhere. I just need a plan for that. If you have ideas, let me know. As you're evaluating how your gardens look at this time of year, another great thing to do, if you can, if they're open, go to visit some public gardens that you admire, especially ones that you admire in the summertime. Go there now while everything is dormant and see how they look in the winter, because what you'll notice is the hardscapes, the evergreens, the deciduous structural things. You'll notice how they are arranged when there's no summer flowering going on. And that might teach you some things about what you like about form and structure in the garden. It's a really great thing to do. Find some public gardens and go study their winter bones. Assessing your gardens after any sort of winter cold damage is a good thing to do, but I don't think that we need to be doing a whole lot about it right now. I think if there is winter damage, probably we'll take care of it in the late winter or early spring when new life wants to come through. But let's just take a look and see what some of the damages that I took in my garden were over this last couple of weeks. This is the first year that I'm trying to grow any vegetables over the winter season, and I've had some failures. Okay, I've had a lot of failures because I didn't take proper care of them in advance of that really Arctic blast winter storm that we had Christmas weekend. And so now, yeah, my cabbages and my broccoli plants, they really took a lot of damage, but there is hope. I haven't cut off the dead foliage yet because here's why. Look at this. There are fresh sprouts coming. And if I pull this one back and look under here, there's fresh, healthy leaves right there. This one is looking even better. It really does have a live goodness in there and sprouts coming out from I would call that a sucker on a tomato, but that might be the regeneration of this dead leaf. Let's look at these cabbages. Did they do the same thing? Is there any life left in these? Oh, it's looking promising. Yeah, down in there, there's still a live cabbage coming along. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut off the dead leaves that got frozen and are now mushy and yellow. But I'm going to then mound up some shredded leaves around these plants and then cover them with my frost cloth like I had planned to do but forgot to do, and see if I can get these to grow over the coming months, and maybe they won't be a total loss. I already have the frost cloth. It's not going to cost me anything additional to what I had already planned on this project, so I won't know unless I try. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to take care of these plants and see if I can get them to live through the winter. And in case any of you are wondering about the other things that I had tried to plant in here, I'll just let you know the radishes, the beets, the lettuce, the komatsuna greens, and yeah, those things, they're gone. I've taken them out and moved on with my life. But the onions that I planted along the the top edge of this bed. Onions and garlic, they're still there. They took some damage on their leaves that had sprouted, but I do anticipate that they're going to be just fine, and hopefully in the spring we'll see evidence of onions and garlic growing right along here. I have these Nandina domestica, 2 here and 2 on the other side of this planter box. And you can see they took a lot of damage on their leaves from the cold. Normally they would be this bronzy red color on the top and then stay kind of green underneath. But the top ones, they just really froze off. And so that's not so great. The one next to it fared a little bit better. You can see the cold brought the red color on it and a little bit of green underneath. This one, for some reason, I guess it's shorter, so cold air sinks and warm air rises. So maybe it was just a little bit colder down lower, and also maybe it caught wind a different way than normal. But anyway, so this one is a little bit better than this one. So I'm pretty sure Nandina are really tough plants. I'm pretty sure that I won't have to prune these off, but if I do, I'm going to wait till spring and see what the new growth patterns do. But if I need to, I can trim this off and it'll regrow from down inside there. But I might just leave it and see what it does. And by the way, the berries are gorgeous. Over on this side, same thing. One of them took more damage than the other. So I'm not exactly sure why this one turned brown more than this one did, but anyway, there they are. They're certainly still alive. They are not going to die. It's just a matter of making them look a little nicer by taking off that cold damaged foliage. Oh, and I have trash in the garden. Isn't that nice? The tips of this boxwood were somewhat youngish. They had grown out new growth in the late fall for some reason. So the tips got a little bit yellow, but it won't be any problem at all in the spring. I'll just trim that off and it'll be fine. This is Osmanthus fragrans, or sweet tea olive, and it looks like it may have bit the dust. I don't know. Every single leaf on this plant is some shade of yellow or brown. So I don't know if it's still alive. I mean, it's still flexible. It's not breaking when I bend it. So maybe it's still alive and just have a lot, like every single leaf got damaged. Maybe it'll push out new growth. I'm not going to remove it now. I'll wait till the spring and see what it does. But this is not a really happy sight for me. Osmanthus fragrans are hardy to zone 7 and south from here. So I knew that it was a bit of a risk to try to grow them in zone 7, the northern end of zone 7. We have a lot more cold days here than they do, say, down in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is also zone 7, but they don't get nearly as many cold hours or as extended periods of cold hours as we do up here in Baltimore. I think our weather differences, even within the zone, are sufficient that it's, if a plant says it's hardy in a zone, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's hardy in every single microclimate of that zone. So we'll have to see how this tea olive, and there's one down on that fence line as well, how they do in the spring. If they recover, maybe I'll keep them. But, I have a neighbor a couple of blocks away who has this huge, gorgeous sweet tea olive. And I was admiring it in the fall when it was blooming. It was so fragrant. It was gorgeous on our dog walks. So I know that they can be hardy here, but I just have to get these 2 young ones established. They've lived through 2 gardening seasons so far. At the end of the first gardening season, before the second one, which was last winter, both of the young plants did have some yellowing leaves, some brown leaves, and they did recover and grow in the next second growing season. So maybe that's just going to be the pattern with these until they put on a little bit more size, or maybe my yard is just not a hospitable climate for tea olives. We'll see. I'm happy to see that my Camellia Japonica, this is Jerry Hill variety, survived the winter cold just fine. It has a lot of buds and they're just fine. They're going to open when it's time for them, which is usually February or March, maybe April. I don't remember. Summer of 2021, I planted it, so I had missed its bloom cycle then. It did bloom last year in 2022, but I don't remember what time of year it bloomed. Now you can see it did have some cold damage on some of the leaves, but most of them are just fine. They're a little bit darker colored. That's what a lot of green leaves do in the winter. But I'm sure it'll be just fine. And I'm just anxious for this thing to take a hold and grow and be beautiful. Here's my other tea olive. It looks pretty much the same as the other one. Not too great. Of course, another popular winter thing to be doing in your garden is to refill your bird feeders. I refilled this one about 4 hours ago and it's already empty. I'm out of bird seed now, but I need to go get some more. But anyway, watching the birds and squirrels on the bird feeders is a fun winter activity for almost everyone. So get those bird feeders filled up, folks. If you have new gardens from last year that you're still working on and still developing, like I am, these 3 tiered garden areas, one thing you could be doing is to measure them and get them down on some graph paper so that you can use that as a plan for the future. Now, I have a drone and I took some overhead shots of these gardens, and I'm planning to use those overhead shots to help me measure the garden. So what I'll be able to do is print out the photograph and then come out in the garden with a tape measure and measure from point to point and then mark that down on the photograph that I took. And then I'll know for sure exactly how big things are, rather than without the photograph, you're just kind of drawing an estimate. Curves are hard, especially to do that. So that is something that I'm definitely going to be doing with those photos that I took. Why do I need scale drawing graphs of my garden? Well, because one of my goals for 2023 is to do better garden design, including more drifts and more clumps of larger collections of the same plant, rather than having such a little mishmash of plants around the garden. I'm not going to be able to do this 100% around everywhere. I'm still going to have mishmashy, chaotic looking garden beds sometimes. But in an area like this is a clean slate, and it's a fresh opportunity for me to try a different gardening skill from what I have right now. So developing new skills, great idea. And having a scale drawing of my garden, because one of the skills I want to develop is better garden design, that's a really useful thing too. So that's just a little bit of a recap of things you can be doing in your winter garden right now. Of course, there are a bajillion other things you could be doing. Cleaning out your tool shed, sharpening all your tools, starting your seeds indoors if it's time for you to start some of the early ones. What are you doing for your garden? Are you resting? That's another really valuable, really effective thing to be doing right now. Just kind of resting and enjoying a quiet January without the pressure of worrying about your garden, especially if you got your garden cleaned up earlier than I did. Hey, if you're in the southern hemisphere, tell us all what is happening in your garden and tell us all the joys that you're finding here in the height of your summer season. Thanks so much for joining me today on this really quick and impromptu walk through the garden, and I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you are. I hope to see you again in another video really soon, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.